This talk is for reflection. It's not dogma. It's not a teaching. It's about how you're affected by this. And one way of doing that is to just to use your attention. Maybe I'll speak a bit about that later on. But just to give me, give what I'm saying maybe 60%, yeah, and give 40% to what's happening inside of you. Whether you like what I say, you don't like it, whether you want to walk out, whether you really enjoy it, you benefit, all those types of things. So that we can actually bring the aliveness of the Buddha's teaching into here right now. So this is not a one-way exploration. This is a two-way thing. It's you and me together right now. Although I'm talking, your presence, every one of you, each person in the room makes a difference. And my basic assumption is that you're all innocent, regardless of what you've done. Your basic true nature is innocence. And so one thing I'd like us to do to start off with, and I know this is a talk and it's not a workshop, but I'd like us to, and I've been experimenting with this myself, which is, it's called coherence, right? What does coherence mean? It sort of means to align, if you like. And what I'd like us to do is just by your intention, that's just by the power of your mind, the way you focus, is just to, in a way, come together as a group. What I've really, and I'll maybe explain about what we do in a minute, but what I've really found is that my understanding of my own suffering has been that it's been caused through relationship, through being in relation to somebody else, to something. And so to understand how we suffer, we need to be in relationship. I'm not here alone, I'm with you, right? And you're with me. And maybe I'll create a lot of suffering for you, or maybe you'll create a lot of suffering for me. Yeah, or we create joy, whatever it is, whichever way round. So what I'd like us to do is just set your mind, and maybe we just sit very shortly, 20 seconds, half a minute, of just aligning with what your truth is. Yeah. So the other thing to notice is you assume a position. This is another thing that we do. We all do we get into the meditation pose and all that sort of stuff. We look fantastic. I'm very good at it, and I've got a robe to go with it. But can we see what it's like just to be with your truth as you are right now, with the way that your bodies are? What does your body really need right now? What do you really need right now? So just to set this intention very, very loosely in the sense of coherence. So just 30 seconds to see what that's like, of just coming into relationship with yourself and into a relationship with everybody else in the room, including me. Okay, thank you. So just notice what's the quality of the room right now. Is there as a meditation, has the centering created a deadening, or is it alive? Is there a sense of aliveness in the room, aliveness in you? 'Cause, I mean, as I understand, the whole process of staying present is that there's an aliveness, staying on this edge of who we are, trying to understand that. So. My experience of this, of trying to explore this way, and the title of this talk is called The Listening Heart, and a lot of as a monk, being out in the outside world, and being outside of a monastic environment, for those of you who don't know, monastic environment, you get provided with everything in a way. I've been very fortunate, people bring food to the monastery and get supported in all sorts of different ways. But leaving the monastery, that's not been the case, and so I've had to support myself in a way. And one of the jobs that I do is I work with, I train teachers how to run dialogue with young people, and I run dialogue with young people. And so a lot of my time I'm listening to people, and I'm listening to these discussions, not to make ping pong things, not to make debates, but actually what is it like to listening, and the quality of the room, the quality of the atmosphere. you know, and it's something that we can easily override, you know. And it's been very interesting coming back this year and just noticing the environment of Buddhafields this year. You know, they're very different. For those of you who came maybe last year, it was up here, and I was soaking by the time I got into the talk. I was absolutely soaking, and here we are. We're basking in fantastic sunshine and what that does to us, but also the number of people here. You know, the sense of there doesn't seem to be so many tents or whatever. So it's very interesting to see what does that have, and maybe the weather creates a sense of us being more chilled or not wanting to do things or whatever it is. But it's to allow that into our experience. That's what I've picked up, and just to how does that affect me? What does that do to me? You know, and how am I listening to that? You know, am I listening through my conditioning process? It's been very interesting. You know, I'm not sure if the man's come. No, it doesn't look like it. There's a few naked men around, and I'm quite interested in about that. And it's over there. That's it. So interested in it. What's that all about? So I thought, why not go and ask him? No point in, you know, you can have all sorts of ideas about what that's all about, but why not just go and ask him? And of course, I have to be slightly tricky as a monk because everybody thinks I'm coming from some sort of moral position, you know, that it's not good to have nudity. Actually, I don't feel that personally. So I just went up to ask him, and I said, you know, what's it all about? You know, why are you doing this? I'm interested to know. I'm not coming from a moral position, you know, and I tried to keep my eye contact with his eyes. Oh, yes. Oh, dear. So, but anyway, there I was. And then it's interesting because as I was speaking to him, and I actually felt his absolute genuineness with what he was doing. You know, I don't want to say his personal story, but he was absolutely genuine in what I felt he was offering. And then I remembered as a kid, with my sister, I was in the back garden of my family home, maybe at age 7 or 8, and my mum, and we were all naked and we were sunbathing or having fun or whatever it was, water fights, I don't know. And my mum said, there's an ice cream van, here's some money, go to the ice cream van. So me and my sister thought nothing of it, then just take the money, go to the ice cream van. And of course it was on the high road. And all my school friends were on the other side of the road in those houses. So of course me and my sister rock up, you know, 7 or 8 years old, some ice cream please, you know, and the guy's like, two naked children. But in my innocence, what's the big deal? You know, what's that all about? And so so we paid the ice cream, but I clearly remember going to school that next week and being absolutely ribbed for it. You know, I can't remember the wording, the phrases that people use, but there was an element of disgust. You know, and where do these ideas come from? You know, what I just thinking on the way here, like I've got my arm bare right now. What's the difference? Is there any difference between that and somebody naked? Who says what's right and wrong? Where does that view come from? What's wrong with people walking around naked? Actually, I really don't have a problem with it. And before I was a monk, when I would travel, I would do quite a bit of that myself. There's no pictures on the internet, thank God. So it's interesting to explore this, what we call the conditioned nature of the world. You know, how we get conditioned. You know because this is for me one of the ways that we suffer. We suffer because we've been told a particular view and opinion. You know, and are we really willing to listen? Listen very deeply. And one of the structures I really like using, I've struggled for many years to share about how to listen. You know, I've known from my own practice, you know, I'm sure maybe that those of you that have meditated, you know, about we all listen inside, yeah, and we listen to our stories, that old wah, 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 it goes on and on and on and on and on, and you get these periods of quietness and then all that sort of stuff, and then it goes nah, 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 all that. So being able to listen to my old jnana, you know, or even my celebrationary thoughts, yeah, I can also listen to other people's stuff because it's not much different, the inner and the outer. There's been a very interesting piece of brain research come out last week about the same process that's used to listen outwards is the same process in the brain that trains our inner thoughts. And actually, if we, I may not get this correct, but it's something like if we use the same tone and voice as we speak outside, it actually reduces the signal so we can hear more clearly. Right? So it's very interesting around schizophrenia and these other voices in our head. For me personally, a person's crazy if they don't listen to their voices. If you don't listen to your voices, because there's always a gift. There's always a gift. It's not to say you need to follow them, but there's a gift in that. So this whole sense of listening, and there's this guy called Otto Scharmer. You may have heard him, Theory U. It's a really lovely framework, but there's 4 types of listening he gives. One is called downloading. It's the first one where we just listen through basically whatever anybody's told us, and we don't really even hear the conversation. The second one is sort of factual listening, and then we start to make judgments. So, I think like this, and then he's thinking or she's thinking like that, and then we make a judgment. The third one is called empathetic listening. You see probably a lot of this here, they mirror back your emotions, say, oh, you feel like this, and all that, and then a hug, and cup of chai, and then a snog or something. I can't do that, but I rejoice in it. And then don't know where that one came from. And then the fourth one is called generative listening. And generative listening comes from this sort of actually being fully embodied. And it's why I started with a sense of coherence, coming into relationship with our bodies and coming into relationship with the group. So that we actually listening from all our senses, just not from our ears, but from our eyes, from our nose, from all our senses. And I'm very fortunate and very lucky. I get to travel quite a bit, and I was invited to Malaysia last year to run training for facilitators to run young people retreats in Malaysia. And as part of this training, I was staying at one of the Buddhist centres out there, and they had the Chinese symbol for listening. And I looked at it, and then it had a description underneath of what it said. And it's amazing, really, because what it says is, give your ears, give your eyes, give your attention, and give your heart. And this is what we need in terms to listen. We have to give our whole sense. And when we do that, there's also a less sense of ourselves. When we give our attention fully to whatever's going on, then there can't be much happening here. And are we really willing to, in a way, relinquish ourselves? Right? This doesn't mean to put ourselves down or not listen, right? But it's a sense of the generosity of that, so we can actually be with other people. And then we can all, as part of that process, there's a mirroring that happens, and then maybe something in ourselves comes up very strongly, and then we can start to explore that. So we start to work on both aspects, not just, the sense of awareness. Awareness means, the sense of being not just aware of the hand, so imagine I want to be aware of the hand, but actually what that whole process, the awareness of the hand and then the awareness of that. So it's a bit like being in a cinema, you're sitting in a chair and you're observing the film, that's one part of the process, but you can also be the person sitting in the chair, the theatre and the film. This sense of awareness. So when we explore this listening process, then it brings in the quality of the heart, and what is the quality of the heart? What do we need to do in order to bring that in, to soften that, to open up to it, to listen to it? Because usually, whatever we avoid, it pops up somewhere else. That's my experience. Push it down here, it comes up there. You push it down here, it comes up there. You push it down. So how do we do that? And for me, it is this quality of really absolutely deep listening in the body, not just as a thought process, but actually deeply rooted in the physical realm. And this sounds very easy, and in some ways it is very easy. But as what I noticed as I travel around and meet all these different situations, I'm in very sometimes very conflicting situations, like when I run these dialogues, and especially when I'm running staff development sessions for teachers in colleges, where there's very strong views about what materialism is, or what religion is, or what Christianity is, or what Islam is, and then they want to know what a Buddhist is and all this sort of stuff, and how can one just step back and embrace that, even though one may self feel completely irritated and upset with that situation. How does one look after oneself in that situation? Because the emotions they're so strong, they just poof, blow up. How can you catch that? And it's this sense of really listening into the cells of the body. How does it resonate? It's been very interesting for me this week. I'm very lucky. I'm going to Australia on Monday. I have a whole tour out there, and I've been trying to get my insurance sorted out. I left it a bit too late, right? And unfortunately, I have an illness which comes under pre-existing medical condition, and then you have to make a phone call and you have to say what the condition is, and they don't have the condition in the computer, and then I don't go to doctors. I go to alternative, I like homeopathy and this type of stuff, and then that's not recognised, and they want you to go to a doctor, and then here I am back into the system again, and then what does that bring up in sense of me? It brings up this huge sense of I am somebody, and I've got something a matter with me, and you're not listening to me, and the amount of suffering I cause myself that whole day, just by willing to hold on to that view that I should be listened to, and that I'm right and they're wrong. So what did I do? It's the only thing I know what I can do is actually sit with that feeling. I didn't have any answers about what I should do. I tried to Google the internet, tried to do all the smart things, and then phone them 3 times and try and work out what their question. All very clever stuff. But then I just sat there. Then I decided to just go for a walk. I'll be with that feeling. That feeling was totally uncomfortable, totally horrible. So I sit, listen, keep listening, and I think, what am I actually worrying about? Who am I anyway? I mean, really, it's kind of ridiculous. What is it actually I'm actually frightened of? What am I fearful of? I'm fearful of death. I'm frightened of dying. And the little person inside of me just needs a little bit of TLC. Just that's all it does, isn't it? It just needs, it's okay. We're going to go on holiday together, isn't it? It's all right. You're not going alone. Right. So we can have our, but this is really, it's very simple stuff. That part inside me just needs a bit of listening, and can I set aside time for that person? So my practice, what I've found to benefit me the most is being in relationship with that, being in relationship with other people, but having a practice not just based on meditation, not just based on mindfulness. As far as I understand it is not enough. You need the skills. You need this, what I would call or Ken Wilber also calls this the vertical. Yeah, that's dealing with the spiritual realm, if you like, awakening, awareness, whatever you want to call it, all these words, and then dealing with the horizontal, the personality, and the skills that you need in order to integrate the personality. And somebody I was counselling a couple of weeks ago and speaking about this absolutely said it really beautifully back to me. She said it's just like a triangle. You want a big triangle so you don't wobble. So there's a strong base, but you can go all the way up. You can actually receive. You can receive the truth. You can receive the present moment. Because the present moment is always with us. It never goes away. In fact, that's the easiest part of the deal in a way. What we're normally dealing with is the sense of lack. And it's interesting coming to Buddhafields, and there's all these different activities, and this is not a criticism, but just to notice, there's all these different activities. But when we settle down behind that, there's still something underneath it, isn't there? We can dance till we're blue in the face, and I'm not against dancing. I brought 5 rhythms into a family camp that I did. We can have our, face painted. We can do all the different, our chakra balancing and our, cranial sacral and all those types of things. And we do all of that, and yet there's still something, there's some little nagging little bit underneath it which says, I'm still here. You didn't get me this time. And I just spent 30 quid on it. Isn't it? So how do we embrace that? So I've done all sorts of stuff in my own healing over the last year. I've done all sorts of different things, but from long meditation, silent meditation retreats, being totally on my own, to going to homeopaths, craniosacral people, all those types of things. They've been all part of my healing process. Working with a therapist and seeing what my family stuff is. All of that type, so that there's a sense of real roundedness, and that I can much easier sit with these situations because I know what my reaction might be, because I already explored that. And as you do more of that, actually that part gets integrated, and then there's less that you don't need to put so much energy into that situation. And then when you have that, you've got much more energy to actually to respond to the situation. Responsibility is always a difficult one. That's what adults do, and I don't recommend doing the adult thing at all. It's not a good thing, right? It's much more the sense of being playful, and being childlike, but with a responsible adult in charge. Yeah. But coming purely from an adult position usually puts us into a very fixed position. I am like this, I am like that. Kids don't do that. A kid will just come here, they'll poo on the floor, they'll walk out. And we don't say nothing, do we? Right. But if I was to do that now, you'd have me arrested. But there's no difference. It's just perception. It's just what we think is right and wrong about the situation. And then also we can also take these to extreme views, and we can say, oh well, it doesn't matter, and we can do the crazy wisdom thing, and everything's all right, and don't worry, and like that. But that's also confusing the levels. So maybe it's true that everything is all right, we don't need to worry, the planet's falling apart, but that's also okay. Or maybe we also need to respond to what's going on in the planet, and with the changes that are happening in our political system, institutional, and our religions. I think this is an extraordinary time. It's an extraordinary time if we're willing to do the work. If we're really willing, what I call going down the rabbit hole. Are you really willing to go as far as you can and see who you really are? And for me, this is a really wake-up time. This is the time to do it. We have our intellectual understandings. There's so much wonderful science out there nowadays. It's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. We could change our educational system overnight. I'm very hot on educational systems, right? We could change it overnight. If we just look at, there's this wonderful theory called the polyvagal theory, right? It's about a nervous system in our body called the vagus nerve. Comes all the way from here all the way down into our guts, right? I'm not going to go into the whole details of it, but it's absolutely amazing what this can offer to education if we were to use that as a model of educating people, rather than just shoving information down into people, and just producing people that have just got certificates and all the rest of it. So when I go to further education colleges, these further education colleges are absolutely amazing. If a business down the road starts, say it starts building computers, they will have a course in that college within 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months the max. That's very, very flexible. And yet they don't teach the students to be that flexible. They don't deal with, how do you deal with change? When we listen to ourselves, we can notice just how much change there is, depending on who we see, the weather, the climate, and all the rest of it. And can we just, in a way, wobble with that? Can we just go from this side to that side, this side to that side? Because there's actually a stability in that. When we wobble like this, that's what I let myself do. I just go like this, and then it settles by itself, and I just find this centeredness, if you like, this place of just, I'm willing to flow with life, just willing to be with that, and then it goes back again, some condition comes up and something upsets me and I'm off again, being Amaranatho, and so again, it's interesting coming here, and then like I'm I become the monk here. It's kind of strange. Like I don't feel that as a persona in myself. I mean, obviously I am dressed like that. But in this environment, people seem to see me as a monk. I mean, it's probably not surprising, I suppose. But from this end of the spectrum, from this inside here, that's not the case, you know. And so how people hold that is what you can become as well. And that's also the way that our minds work and how we can project things out. And also how I can do the same thing to you. I can project onto you, oh, you know, you're a bunch of hippies or whatever it is. But that, you know, is that true? I don't know, because I don't know any of you in the room. You know, I know a few of you, but I don't know, all, you know, I don't know you all personally. So how can I make that projection? So what I got to do is just actually investigate and find out. I'm not going to go around the room now and ask, tell me your, you know, your life stories. But it is really, you know, it is important to investigate in this way. You know, just you know, what is the truth? How are we really? So I've had this really amazing process with my family recently, and it's through this trust and the willingness to just accept the way life is. As a starting place, is that a friend in the family, a relative in the family died, and at that point, my mum didn't really know her family very well at all, and I said to my mum, maybe you could ask this relative if there's a family tree, and so she said, yeah, I'll ask them. So, and about a week later, I got an email, and it had the whole family tree on there. It was quite extraordinary. In all the detail, and it went back 3 or 4 generations. And so I looked through this family tree, and then I started to realise, wow, there's still a relatives. There's relatives alive. And then I looked up the name, and then I put it in Google, you know, and I hunted this person down. And so I hunted this cousin down, and I better not say where he works. So I found out where he works, and so I phoned him up, and I said. I tried to get through to him. I couldn't get through to him, but I said, can I get your email? And so I sent him an email, and I didn't hear anything back for a long time, maybe over a month. And then I got this phone call, very worried phone call actually. You know, how did you find my details? You know, how did you find out about me? You know, and give me some of your details to see whether it's true. And so we went through this process. It's actually a very interesting process. And all of a sudden it clicked. The reality is this person, is a cousin. I have a grandfather, I have an uncle that's 101, that's related to my brother, related to my mother's father, and this is where it starts to get spooky, and my mum starts to get goosebumps. As I have a Jewish upbringing, and I bring that into my teachings and work with the Jewish community as well. So my great grandfather was a wandering rabbi. And he came into Carmarthen in Wales, and then he went all around the country, Leicester, and went to America and lived in London. And then on the other side of the family, there was another guy was given the same lay name as me. And then when we met up with these cousins just a couple of weeks ago. And then what does he do? He works in the computer industry. I used to work in the computer industry. He now gave that up, and he works in the mental health industry. Well, you know. And then he tells me about his other cousin, which he says I look like. And then again it says, you know, they work with young people. There's another woman. There's another member of the family in Thailand at the moment. So so without any sense of predicting these things, they've emerged in the family. Now how does that work? You know, how does that work? It's like a sort of thing that you read in the Daily Mail, really. It's been a really extraordinary process for me. And one of the interesting things about it's my heart. One of the interesting things about the heart is the heart. When we're born, our head is actually very close to our heart. So we start off like this. You know, it's part of the spiritual path. How do we get from here down to here? But the other part of it is that there's no genetic code for the way the heart folds, right? So the heart is actually, it starts off like a long sheet, and then it sort of folds in like this. But there's no genetic. They found no genetic code to actually do that. What they have found is that there's a field that influences that, and it does it spontaneously. So for me, there is this sense of extending into as we extend through our heart. There's a field, and I don't know if you know this Heart Math Institute. This Heart Math Institute has actually measured the heart frequency, the heart field, and it can actually be measured, and it's a territorial, so it comes out like this, and it actually resonates with other people. So as we learn to trust in ourselves, to be centered, and this sense of resonance, we can actually start to affect other people, and other people can affect us. And when I run these dialogues, what I try to do myself is to stay centered and calm. Yeah. Even though, as I said before, my emotions are running all over the place. So for me, this is a deep sense of what my teacher Ajahn Sumedho used to call would be intuitive awareness. Yeah. Not intuition as we get from the guts, but the intuition from the whole sense of beingness. Yeah. Our whole sense of involving our body and our minds and our heart. So I just noticed I lost connection with myself for just a split second there. So I just wanted to come back into my body. So one of the things I promised myself when giving this talk was, I wonder what it would be like to fail, to not give the right talk, to not do the right thing, or to try to please you, or give you a joke, or whatever that is. But I decided I'd refuse to do that today. And see what it's like, just to relinquish that idea, give that idea up. Sometimes I can feel like when you sit in this position, you can feel so confident, you can feel so empowered and all the rest of it, and you think the Dharma's flowing through you and all these great experiences. But and the reality, and also the reality is I'm just a fragile human being, just like everybody else in the room, and can I also look after my needs in that process? Can I give myself the space and the time to receive what's going on? So actually we can be with the vulnerability of life. One of the things that I have when I work with these teachers is to embrace I don't know. Can you just say I don't know to the students, that I don't have that answer? Maybe we could explore it together. Maybe we could Google it on the internet. Maybe you could ask somebody else in the room. Maybe they know better than I do. Maybe the person sitting next to you's got more wisdom. But it's a very frightening place to be, isn't it? I don't know. Our world is set up on knowing. It's based on facts. It's based on excitement. It's based on shopping, isn't it? It's based on productivity. It's based on getting a result, on a benefit. But can we just see what it's like to not do that, and to receive yourself in this situation? Just what is that like? Like, I don't know. The way that the muscles in the stomach, they contract and they go, And can one soften the stomach, relax your shoulders, sense of breathing, you know, how the breath affects us, you know, when we panic and it's all like, you know. How do we give ourselves these skills? You know, I've done so many different things. You know, I've been running these workshops on what is called vicarious trauma. It's the trauma that you get through listening to other people's trauma. You know, by listening to other people that are traumatized, you can get traumatized in that process. That's how deep we're connected. You know, so how does one look after oneself? You know, partly through meditation, but also partly understanding what that process is. You know, how the brain works. You know, whether you're in what we call the limbic brain, which is the emotional brain. The emotional brain just wobbles all over the place. Gives you highs and lows and all the rest of it. And can you bring more, you know, by breathing and relaxing and bringing more blood into the front part of the brain where you can start to actually think and make choices. I once had this experience where I was on a self-retreat by myself and I was in the middle of a forest and I turned around and I orientated and I got lost and I started to do the whole panic business, you know, do the oh, I'm all alone and nobody knows where I am and I'm on a long retreat and I'm going to die and all this sort of stuff. You know. And so what did I do? Stand still, breathe, orientate, and then I just look down on the floor. There's a little red marker. You know. so simple. But we can do this. We can do this. You know, with any situation. If we just bring our attention into our bodies. You know, and this absolute willingness to be vulnerable. You know, to be with just the way that we are, not try to be a Buddha, not try to be a great meditator, a good parent, you know. Also run these classes, these mindfulness-based parenting classes, you know, and I get this all the time, you know, my teenager is like this, what should I do? Do nothing. They're growing up. You know, it's fantastic. We have so much wonderful brain science now. We can actually say what's going on in teenagers' minds. We can say that actually our education system is doing it all wrong. You know, we need to get them to start at 10 o'clock in the morning. Don't get them up early. Give them loads of sleep. Their hormones are raging. They need sleep. They don't listen. Fantastic. What a relief. Isn't it a relief? If you know that, it's a relief. I don't expect, when I work with a particular age group, say 15 to 16, I don't expect them to listen. I expect myself to listen. I don't expect them to listen. Right? And, you know, and the willingness, you know, I just run a young person's retreat, 18 kids in a secular environment, which is actually new to me. And we had this conflict. Somebody else was facilitating a dialogue, and they went slightly off, and we went into what I would call parenting mode. So we started to tell them, you got to do this like this, and of course, what do teenagers do? So there's this huge. It was really going to bubble up. So I said, okay, let's just take a break. Go in the room. I was doing it with a few other facilitators. We just had a quick chat. So we've made a mistake, haven't we? And we went, oh yes, we have. Right? We go back in the room after 10 minutes after they'd called down and said, we've made a mistake. We spoke in the wrong way, and we'd like to do it differently. Total respect from the group, total respect from the teenagers. It's fine. Can we leave this dialogue now? Can we come back in the morning? Sure. That's what they did. Come back in the morning. Do you want to discuss it? Oh no, it's all been covered. It's fine. Right? But we hear about all these things, you know, we hear about, oh, you can't speak to teenagers, they never listen. And it's just perception. It's just perception. It's just how willing are you willing to stay with what's going on? You know, sometimes it's too much, and one has to also respect that. You have to say, sorry, I can't do it right now. I was in a monastery temple just the other day, and I'd just come off the train. It was a hot day. I wanted to go to my room and have a wash, and as soon as I walked in the room, somebody said, they call monks Bunty, sometimes I was called Bunty, and he said, Bunty, can I speak to you? And I just looked around and I said, no. I can't do it right then, because actually I couldn't. What's the point of me speaking if I can't be present with the person? It's actually not honest. I could give all the waffle and the great Buddhist stuff, tell them about 4 Noble Truths and the 3 signs and all that sort of stuff. But what does that do? That's just a very nice teaching, but it's not real. What's real is what can you offer to, what is real, what can you offer to the situation? Your presence. And everybody can do that. And if you look at a baby, why do we all go, oh, what are they giving us? Unconditional love. Unconditional love. And we can have that all the time. If we're willing to give that, we can also receive it. Because whatever you see in anybody else belongs to you. You can project whatever you like on me, but that's yours. One minute I'm a Hare Krishna, the next minute I'm a Gandhi, the other time I'm wrapped in a bedsheet, I'm a time waster, go and get a job, or I don't know, or you're a saint and a guru and you sit on a nice seat and, we want to wash your feet and all that sort of stuff. But that doesn't belong to me. That doesn't belong to me. My job is just to receive that and listen inside and see how it affects me. Sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't want that. But I can still listen. I can still offer that. So this is really just it's a really strong encouragement to really to do the work, to do the work not just on the vertical, not just do with the mindfulness, not with the awareness, but actually find things by trusting yourself, by listening in what you need in order to heal. This is a time in the universe when there's a lot of opportunity for healing, and there's not anybody in this room that can't have that. It's your choice. I speak about in the secular way about attention. Wherever you place your attention is what you see. If you place your attention on conflict, you're guaranteed to see conflict. If you place your attention on peace, you're going to see peace. Doesn't mean you're going to find freedom, but at least you'll see peaceful situation, which might give you some space, some internal space to receive what's going on. So this sense of trusting, opening, all this type of body language, just open up. What does that feel like? Just to be not on the cross. It's one option, but to actually just open up and receive who you are, just as you are right now, and not to make it too complicated. Not to make it too complicated.